Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new edition of Ariel Helwani Meets. I, of course, am Ariel Helwani. We have a very special one for all of you. This man, our guest today, rarely does these interviews. I mean, this is extremely rare. He is one of the biggest names in professional wrestling. He was once known as the Legend Killer. Now he's simply a legend. He's the Viper. He's the 14-time WWE champion, 2-time Royal Rumble winner, and he's a big part of the Royal Rumble this Saturday on BT Sport Box Office in his backyard of St. Louis. This is a really big deal. Of course, it is a great honor and privilege to speak to the one and only Randy Orton. Randy, how are you? Thank you so much for doing this.
I'm good, Ariel. Thanks for having me, man.
Oh, it's great to talk to you. And honestly, when I was told that we're going to get an opportunity to talk to you, I was like, wait, is this the same Randy Orton that I have been watching on television for 20 years? Because I know you don't do a lot of these. And so could I ask, why throughout your career have you been sort of reluctant to do these types of interviews?
That's a good question. I think a lot of people might think that I'm just out of pure laziness, or I've been around a while, so it's like, he doesn't have to do that stuff. But these are probably harder for me to do than having a match in front of 40,000 people, this Saturday. And now that we're doing it and we're talking, it's fine. We're talking. That's not that hard to do. Talking about something I love to do and have been doing all my life. But I think it's the anticipation, or knowing that I have the media, like media junkets, press junkets, all that stuff, just repetition, saying the same crap over and over and over. I don't know. It gets to me. I feel like I'm not a good conversation sometimes. Maybe that's all up here. I don't know. I get in my own head. Let's just say that. But I'm not the most comfortable doing these, and I figure just save it for the guys that are the guys and gals that are. But I of course know who you are. My kids, my sons are very much into MMA, so they're very aware of who you are. So they're excited for me to do this with you today, and and I'm excited to speak to the Royal Rumble is huge. It's it's a part of my career. I'm a 2-time Royal Rumble winner. We're in St. Louis. We're at the Dome for the very first time. 40,000 people thereabouts. It's going to be an amazing night. So it's. I want to promote the show. I want people to be there. I want every ticket to be sold out. I have to do this stuff, but it's not my favorite thing to do, in a nutshell.
I appreciate that. I respect that. I was also wondering, considering the fact that, of course, your grandfather was a wrestler, your father was a wrestler, your uncle a wrestler. You've been in this business for so long, and you have great appreciation and respect for the history of the business. I was wondering if maybe the reason why you didn't like it was because you wanted to protect the business, and you didn't want to blur those lines, break kayfabe, all that stuff.
There's a little bit to that maybe early on, because when we would do these early on, like, you wouldn't break kayfabe, and that I miss that. And I know there's other guys that miss that as well. I feel like that's a part of the WWE, or the wrestling industry, professional wrestling, whatever you want to call it. That right there is what it is. That's part of the art. And yeah, and that's kind of how Undertaker went about it. And I saw that he didn't do those interviews, and I saw why he didn't do those interviews. And it created a mystique, and people had to buy a ticket. They had to buy a ticket to come and see him in person. No autograph signings, nothing, anything like that. I mean, that man's autograph now, who knows what it's worth, because he never signed one. But as far as breaking kayfabe, yeah, that's nauseating to me. The way I grew up, and I remember my father being very careful about what he said to fans when we were out as a family, and people would ask him, is it real? Is it real? And these people believed, or wanted to believe anyway, that it was real. And that's a pretty special thing. Now, when I'm out there in the ring, I'm doing everything I can to get them to believe, even though in the back of their head, they know that it's all bull, because we tell them. I feel like if you're out there and you're in the moment, and you're just feeling that reaction from those people, you can get those rare instances where they forget what they know, and they're just watching you, and they're digesting everything you're seeing, every little movement, body language, facial expression, and you can get these people to believe. So even though kayfabe's been broken, we still get those little glimpses where those people, they believe in what we're doing and everything we're doing, you know. But not doing the interviews definitely helps not break kayfabe. It was hard at first. It's gotten a lot easier because you don't have to watch what you say or think about what you say. Really, anything's fair game now. So here we are.
Do you remember the first time that you realized your father, the great cowboy Bob Orton, wasn't just your father, but this famous guy who does this thing on TV? Do you remember that?
I don't. I don't have I remember people when I was younger, kids at school, teachers especially. Oh my God! Oh wow! Your dad's on TV. You know, your dad's Cowboy Bob. You know, isn't that so cool? And to me, it was just kind of what he did for a living. And I see that now with my children, where, you know, I'm just dad. There's nothing special about me. If anything, I'm an embarrassment, just like every other father to their teenage sons and daughters, you know, like, so it's interesting being in my shoes, seeing it from both sides, living it, being successful at it. Like this is my life. And I just am so blessed. And fair warning, I ramble, so I'm going to bounce all over the place.
That's fine.
But the first thing that comes to mind with what we're talking about, just the fact that I didn't have to pay a lot of dues, and the door was open for me because of who my father is. Like the respect I have for the guys in the locker room, the guys that you know had a dream and did everything that they had to do to make that dream a reality, and ended up in the WWE, in that locker room, you know, main eventing WrestleMania, guys like Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens, and so many of those guys in that locker room I had the utmost respect for, because I didn't have to dig and be as hungry as those guys. So I don't know if I'd be here if it wasn't for my father, because I don't know if I have it in me what those guys put themselves through to be here.
Speaking of headlining WrestleMania, your father was a part of the very first WrestleMania main event. Remember it vividly, remember the cast. He was a tremendous heel. Where were you when WrestleMania went down? Were you at MSG? Were you at home? Did you have any idea that this historic thing was going down involving your dad?
I was at home, and I was still young to a point where, you know, I knew he was gone. I knew he was at work. You know, my daughter now is the same age, give or take, that I was when my dad was in the first Mania. And, you know, she's 5 and she has no idea. She sees me on TV and she goes, oh, there's dad. Like, how did you fit inside that box on the mantle? You know, like she doesn't grasp it. And it was the same thing with me back then. And of course, no one had any idea what WrestleMania was going to become, right? But to look back and to know my dad was a part of that, that's huge. That's huge. And another thing, I've mentioned it before. This is really cool, especially back when it was happening. Like the feeling as a, you know, 24. It was 20 years after the first WrestleMania, which took place at the Garden. Then we were at the Garden for my first Mania, WrestleMania 20, and my dad was there watching in the stands. And I remember just that feeling of, you know, everything coming full circle, being in that building 20 years later, and like, wow, 20 years at that point in my life felt like such a long time because I was barely 20 years old. Now, 20 years, it's like, oh, 20 years, that's not that long, you know?
I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy when you think about like 20 years before 1985 was 1965, and now 20 years from now, I do that all the time, is 2002.
Right.
It blows my mind.
65
Yes.
to you and I. Wow,
Yeah.
that's ancient.
Right.
But it's not. When you think about the kids, you know, thinking about, like you said, 2002, like that's yesterday, man. That's now. No,
Right.
that's 20 years is a long time.
Did your father try to deter you from going down the pro wrestling path?
No, he didn't. He didn't push me along either. My dad was, he is, I should say, gosh, he was, he wasn't pushing me to go to college. He wasn't pushing me to wrestle. He wasn't really pushing me to do anything. He was kind of there and supportive of whatever I wanted to do. I know that I didn't really have any guidance when I was thinking about college and stuff when I was in high school. So like we've got high school kids now. I have a son that's a senior. So I remember being lost and being that old and not knowing what to do and not really getting much help from my parents. And so remembering that, like I'm talking to Rob, my 17-year-old senior now, and I'm like, man, he's not really into school. And I'm like, college might not be the right thing. Like, if you're interested, let me know. I could probably get you down to NXT and at least see how you like it. See if you take to it. Because he's a huge fan. My stepsons have been fans their whole life. They're well aware of who I was when I was dating their mom. Back then, I was the coolest thing in the world. And then once we got married, I married their mom and then they moved in. And, now I'm taking it was Michael. He had baseball practice. He was a freshman in high school. I took him to practice. And when I dropped him off, I was going to go inside and like meet the coach, do all that. And this poor kid just wouldn't move, stayed in the car, started crying. No, you don't understand. You'll embarrass me. I'm like, what? Come on, man. Let me go meet your coach. You never know. Like, he's like, no, these kids are mean. These kids are mean. You don't even know what they're going to do to me if you go in there. And I'm thinking, man, like, what if they're wrestling fans? You don't know. Like, but yeah. It's funny, man. He did not want me walking into his baseball practice. There I go again, just shooting all over the freaking.
No, this is good. This is good. I can relate as a father as well. I'm not as cool as you are, and my kids also don't want me coming to their practices. So it's kind of the same thing. I'm Ariel, sure the other dads think you're cool.
I'm not cool. I'm not cool at all, man. And neither are you. To our children, we'll never be cool, man. But I'm going to hang on as long as I can to try.
So ultimately, why did you decide that this was going to be the profession for you?
Well, I had the little brief stint in the Marine Corps, right. And I've talked about that a bunch. It's almost boring to talk about, but I got a bad conduct discharge from the United States Marine Corps. And I found myself, I was 19, living in the basement of my parents' house. And this was when I kind of like, okay, I had to make a move. This was going to either be, I was going to be that kid living at home, working at the gas station down the street, or I was going to get my act together and do something about it. Just like my 17-year-old stepson now, I was not going to go to college. School wasn't my thing. Wasn't bad at it, but just didn't enjoy it. So it was like, maybe I give this thing a try. This thing that, the Orton name has been doing for 2 generations. Maybe I give this thing a try, even though I didn't think I could ever follow in my father's footsteps, because, those are men. Those are giants, behemoths beating the crap out of each other in the ring. Like, I didn't think I could hold up. I didn't have a lot of confidence when I was that old, but I knew I had to try. I knew I had to do it. And he made the call, and it was so easy. I think he might have left the company on bad terms back in the 80s, late 80s. And I think he thought that the Orton name was blackballed. And he didn't think that they would give me a look. Why? I do not know. If I did, I don't know that I'd share, but they called him right back. And you got Tony Garea, Jack Lanza, Bruce Pritchard, Tom Pritchard, all these guys that love, adore, respect my father. And that's basically who he was asking. He wasn't talking to Vince, on the phone. He was talking to the Pritchards, Garea, Lanza. And those guys are like, Bob, how you doing? Oh my God, you got a kid? How big is he? Oh, 6'3", whatever I was at the time, 230, 240. Like, holy crap, send him up. So I went to Stanford and I got in the ring with Dr. Tom for like 30 seconds, had never hit the ropes. Grew up around it my whole life, but had never been in the ring. And even though I had never been in the ring, Dr. Tom tied up with me, kind of like just moved around. I had wrestled my whole life amateurly. So like I had a little bit of the fundamentals as far as like knowing where your body is physically and positioning and things like that. But they signed me just based purely on the fact that I was a big kid and I had that name. And I'll never forget that. Like it's almost embarrassing to be like, man, that's how easy it was for me, you know? So like I take like looking back, I had so much heat in OBW because I was being paid to learn this trade, to learn how to wrestle, had no grasp. And I was down there with guys that were in the indies and they were paying to be taught because they wanted to be in the WWE developmental zone. They wanted to be taught by Jim Cornette, Rip Rogers, Danny Davis. So like I had a lot of heat down there when I first started. And I know why I did, is because that's all I had to do was just ask my daddy for a job, you know, and from the outside looking in, like how much easier could it have been for me? It couldn't have been any easier, you know? So I just, being this old, looking back, kind of like being able to take a step back and then look at my career, like that phone call, the fact that I was able to get my foot in the door so easy, like I will never forget that. You know, I got so lucky and I'm so blessed to be here. You know, thank God for my father.
What do you think this version of you, this sort of grizzled, veteran, mature father version of you would think of if you could stick with me here, this kid who walks in because his daddy made the phone call, who probably, has an ego, right? And maybe
Sure.
is not really like aware of, the do's and don'ts. What do you think, because you're kind of the locker room leader and everyone respects you so much, what do you think you would think of that kid who walked in 20 years ago into the main roster?
Wow, I've never been asked that question. Honestly, well, at this point in my career, I think that I'd be understanding because I would see a lot of myself in him. If it was 10 years ago, it would have been a different story. We would have figured out how to get that younger version of me to quit. You know what I mean? His gear would have ended up in the showers after the show every night. He would have had his flights canceled or walked in and had his luggage bolt locked to the rafters of the arena. Like he would have been ribbed until he would have just not got on that plane and went to work that next week. You know what I mean?
Wow,
Like,
that's not
but
very nice,
now,
Randy. Why would you do that to someone?
Because that growing up in the business and then coming in when I came in, the guys that were in that locker room, and I love Undertaker. I don't want to put my foot in my mouth here and say like, oh, back in my day, guys had guns and knives. Now they just play video games. Like I freaking love video games, and I love to go to the shooting range too. But the way it was back then, it just felt like, and this might be like a younger Randy Orton's point of view, but these were all grown ass men. And the level of respect in there, depending on how many bumps you put your body through, how many miles you put your body through, that level of respect, like adjusted, developed, depending on which talent you were talking about. But everybody demanded respect. What I see a lot of now is guys don't know or understand that if it wasn't for the generation before us, there wouldn't be an us. They don't understand that that road was paved by guys like my dad driving 1,000+ miles a week. Like we have a rough schedule. After pandemic, of course, it got easier, picking back up again. But my hardest year, I think I wrestled 220 dates in 1 year. That was like my hardest year. The year I worked the most, that was 2013. Like my father was wrestling 8, 9, 10 times a week sometimes in the indies. Like I was as a kid living in a place for 6 months, driving to another territory, moving all our stuff, getting an apartment, living there for 6 months. My dad would work that territory. And the amount of work he put in to pave the way for me to be able to do what I did, he did that for everybody. So like when I first came into the business, that level of respect was apparent. What I see now is guys kind of get the contract, go put in some time at NXT, and this isn't everybody, Ariel, and and I would never name any names, but you see the general the general attitude coming out of NXT is like, all right, I'm here. Where's my stuff? Where's my music? Okay, I'm gonna go do my thing. Like, not like you have to respect everybody that came before you. You have to respect everybody that you're in there with. If I'm out in the ring with you, I have to be able to know that you're going to put my body first and you're going to protect me and everything that you're doing. And you have to know that about me. And with that comes respect. And I just feel like sometimes now that level of respect has dwindled. And if anything, that's what's upsetting to me as an old timer. I say old time, I'm old. An old timer in the locker room. That's what I see. That level of respect is just slowly dwindling. And I don't think it's malicious. I think you got guys that maybe weren't fans of the business that found, a sport that they excelled in, maybe have an appearance or a look or an accolade that got them here, but now they don't really get it. They don't understand that, when you're so big, you don't have to take any bumps because you're the giant. And you got that guy in the ring opposite you bumping all over the place and wearing his body down to make you look like a giant. Like, you owe him a steak dinner. You owe him, you need to thank him every chance you get. If he needs a bag of ice after the match because he took all these big moves because you're a big son of a and he was trying to make you look like a killer, then you go get that ice for him. See if he's okay, check on him. And I feel like guys take for granted how much we're beating each other up, because when you're new and you start in this business, like you're fresh, you're durable, but it quickly adds up. And I think guys take for granted how grueling this business can be, especially if you're in it for the long haul. Taking care of each other. It's like a band of brothers. I was in the military, got the bad conduct discharge, but if there's one thing I learned while I was there, it was like, you're with your brothers. It's a band of brothers and you got each other's back. And it's the same thing in a WWE locker room. And when you can tell guys don't get that, or it's not as much of a team player mentality, but it's more me, there's a time and a place for that. But when it's all the time, then that's not a good look. When I can't trust you to respect me enough to be thinking about my body and my health rather than you knocking my head off on live TV and making it look like you killed me, then we got a problem.
This is fascinating stuff, by the way. You should do more of these, just for the record. You're very good at it. So I appreciate the insight tremendously. I'm just curious, I refer to you as a legend. You're one of the greatest of all time, by the way. Congratulations. Most pay-per-view matches, most matches on Raw. I mean, these are huge honors, and a testament to your longevity and just the superstar that you became. How close was all of this to not happening? And perhaps self-inflicted? How close were you to being that guy who came in with the famous last name, but unfortunately squandered it?
Yeah, oh my God. On more than one occasion, it came very close. I hate that was the case, but it's part of my story, like I'm not going to act like it didn't happen. Maybe in another decade, I'll be a little more specific about the dumb crap that I got away with, but it was dumb. And as a father, it's like, I've made enough mistakes where I can kind of help my children, in that avenue. But if there's anything that I learned from it, it's that I can pass along the kind of what's going on, the process in the mind as you are faced with these decisions that you have to make. You have to maybe take an extra second sometimes and think on it before you act.
What was the turning point for you? How did you get the train finally on the track? Was there one specific moment, conversation, a person that helped that finally happen?
I think it was a gradual thing. I had my first child when I was 28, Alana, and that helped. But it didn't fix anything. I still had some growing up to do. And when I was 33, I met my wife, Kim, and I feel like a lot of people that know her backstage and throughout the company, like they'll thank her randomly for coming into my life because, oh my God, thank you for meeting him because he used to be such, guys that and girls that have been around for as long as I have, crew guys and people on the TV truck that I've known for years, like they'll always thank her for, fixing me or whatever. And I think it was a little bit of her. I think it was my three stepsons. I went from having one child, Alana, who at the time was 5 or 6, to marrying a woman who had 3 sons. So I went from 1 to 4 kids overnight in a blink. That might have had something to do with it. Mm-hmm. Like I have all this responsibility now, it's not just me. When it was just me, man, it was easy to be selfish. Or when it wasn't as many people as I have now, depending on me, it was easier to be selfish. Plus I was younger. And, you mix all that together and then you got a kid that's making a good living and can kind of, get into whatever trouble he wants to get into. Like that's a bad mix. But I'd say Kim, the stepsons, having a 5th child, Brooklyn, who's 5 now, I think that all kind of gradually helped me kind of see the big picture, mature a little bit. But trust me, I'm by no means mature. Oh my God, there's glimpses where I catch myself and I'm like, man, all these people think like the new Randy's here. They have no idea. Maybe I just hide it better now, Ariel. I don't know. But there's still a little demon on my shoulder, or a little devil on my shoulder or whatever. But the angel over here is just, he could be the devil.
That is good. It's good to be in that spot. So the resume is iconic, the entrance is iconic, the music is iconic, your pose iconic, the finish is iconic, and it's one of those, it's one of those moves, the RKO, much like the stunner, the Stone Cold Stunner, or the People's Elbow that was able to cross over into the mainstream. And I've always wondered, does Randy Orton ever sit on, Instagram or TikTok and look at people doing the RKO out of nowhere? Do you get a kick out of this, seeing like these people randomly in all walks of life do your stuff? And at what point did you realize, wow, this thing is really like crossed over into the mainstream, unlike most finishers?
Yeah, unlike most finishers, indeed, man. I think the whole social media viral, like out of nowhere thing that I had nothing to do with. God, I wish I could meet the first person that made that meme or whatever, and just give them a nice hearty handshake, man, and maybe some compensation, because that has kept me relevant. That being on TV, being consistent, having the most matches, keeping me in the public eye, that's kept me relevant as well. But what's took me up a notch, I think, is the fact that so many people that really don't know who Randy Orton or what pro wrestling is all about, or what the WWE is all about, they've seen that guy come in and drop the bride at the altar when she passes out, or that 5-year-old kid that trips over the dog tail, and then, oh my God, out of nowhere, boom, and like they've seen that. I don't post a lot on social media. I have like dark spells where 6 months will go by and I didn't post at all, but like I'll throw a video of like one of my kids RKOing me into the pool this summer, and like it'll get 1 million views or more. And like so corny saying this, I feel like World Star picked up an RKO video we did one time, and I mean my kids are losing their minds. This is so cool. But just to know, like it's not really me. It's this. It's a little bit of me, but it's this, like, through my efforts and all the fans out there and non-fans using that those gifs and memes and everything like that, that's kept that move relevant. So when I'm setting up for it, or when I tease it and don't hit it, like, it's really cool to have something like that and know that I can manipulate the crowd, really whenever I want. If it's a well-placed RKO tease, they're on the edge of their seats and you can feel all the air get sucked out of the building when I do that. And so it's taken some time, but it's all the people that I've hit with it. It's hitting John Cena with that thing 200 times, back in the day. It's all that has helped me and my brand make the WWE more successful, make me more successful, make like I'm working with Chad Gable and Otis right now. So that finish, that can help them, like if Chad Gable kicks out of an RKO, a well-timed, well-placed RKO, that could be something that propels him if they don't drop the ball the next week and have him, do the job in 30 seconds. Right. But that could propel you know what I'm saying. But that could propel talent. That could help talent. That gives them the rub. So this move isn't only helped me, but it's helping other people.
I feel like for the vast majority of your career, you were the heel, and you were a tremendous heel. You just have that sort of heel-like demeanor, and you come across as a heel. But now, as a face, coupled with Riddle, the former UFC fighter, it's been a lot of fun to see you in this role.
Oh, yeah.
Do you enjoy being a face at this stage of your career, or do you miss being the heel?
Both. I feel like I'll always be a little bit of a heel at heart out there. And I think that comes across like in promos sometimes. Like Monday, I lost my towards the end of that spelling bee. And that was me just kind of playing with like range where it didn't really match the segment, but the people got with it anyway. So it's one of those things. Repeat your question, Ariel. I ended up doing what I do sometimes, and I completely forgot what your question was.
No, it was just I was just wondering if you're actually enjoying being a face these days, as opposed to that long run that you had as a heel.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Being a baby face right now feels amazing. I think I'm kind of letting the wall down, letting the barrier down, and I don't know if it's breaking character or if it's just letting the babyface character show through, but I'm finding myself laughing a lot out there, smiling, finding the funny in whatever the situation may be. Each week I've got to kind of look at Riddle and roll my eyes. And it was amazing at first, when I tell him to just shut up, it was funny, but you can't do that every week. So like, I'm trying to figure out different ways to show that I'm just about had it with this guy, but he's a real life lovable dude. And it's so funny because I hated his guts at first. And it comes back to what we were talking about, that respect thing. He came across as a highly disrespectful and I can tell you why, and I might kind of make me sound like when I tell you why, but he never came up and said, "Hi, Ariel, I'd for 2 years I'd run into this guy and never went out of my way to say hi, but I'd see him and guys come and say hi. Like his whole goal is to come up to the WWE and be on the main roster and make a lot of money for him and the company. That should be the goal, to get to work with all these other guys that to be like more mainstream than what NXT can provide, and so I would think that you would show up to work and introduce yourself. Hey man, Matt Riddle, hopefully we can work together one day. I'm not the biggest wrestling fan, but I've done a lot of this. And now I see how cool wrestling is and I'm trying to play catch up. I'm 35 and I want to do this and that. Like, there was none of that banter, none of that. It's just headphones on, eyes are glazed over, and I walked by in Miami about 2 years into him being in NXT and we were at Raw and I just walked by and I for the first time, I said, you know what, screw this. I'm going to introduce myself. And I just came up to him and said, hey man, how's it going? or no, I said, there he is, you know, just whatever. And he looks at me, goes like that, and then walks off. And I'm just like, yeah. So, but that's him. I'll text him now and he won't respond. But that's just him. You know what I mean? Like, so we started working together. I started seeing him interact with other people. Oh, he's you know, he's being smug over there to those guys, but that's weird because they're close. Like, oh, that's just him. Like, and there's guys like that. Dean Ambrose was like that. Who the hell is this guy? You know what I mean? And then you just find, oh, he's just a super weird dude. Riddle, what you see is what you get. So once I kind of let the wall come down, and me and him, I would, you know, you don't have a lot of friends in this business, but I'd consider him a friend. We have a lot in common, which is so funny because the whole thing on TV is that we don't have anything in common, that we're so different. But in real life, we have a lot in common. But when I'm out there in the ring and the red light's on, like I'm feeling his energy and the people are feeling it. And it's this weird thing he's got. He's got something special, and he's a lot smarter than he lets on TV and in real life. Like he's a sharp dude. I think, and you know, he's lucky to have me there with him, right? I'm giving him the rub. I think that I'm even more lucky to have Riddle with me because of why you're asking me that question. Like, you know, you're having a lot of fun out there. I see you smiling. You know, I see you having a good time. This babyface run. I think that is directly related to him.
Wow. And
there's a lot of reasons. You know, he's always in a good mood. That's good for me. If I'm around negativity, you're going to suck me down with you. Like I kind of match energy. So Riddle's got the energy. He's out there. He gives it 110%. His facials are amazing. Like when he gets excited, you don't have to tell him, hey, I need you to really be excited here, or you really need to let those fans see this or that. Like he kind of just knows. He instinctively knows a lot of things that guys that are new like that or a little more green than others, they generally don't have those instincts, and some of them never will. But he has them. So I couldn't say enough good things about Riddle, but I definitely was not a fan at first.
I mean, you're synonymous with the Rumble, right? You've won 2. You can go for the 3-peat here, but you're going to be the home. Like that pop is probably going to be tremendous when you walk out there. This is all about you. What do you think this is going to mean to you, and how is it going to feel to walk out in front of your people on Saturday?
Yeah, no matter whether I win this thing or not, Ariel, I'm going to have a good time. I'm going to have my family out there. I'm going to have my kids in the front row. That's always very special for me. So being in St. Louis, having a lot of friends and family, feeling that kind of hometown, you know, being the hometown boy and feeling that buzz, that's special. The fact that we're in the Dome for the first time and there's going to be 40,000 people. I mean, there's a lot of things that make the Royal Rumble this Saturday special. I believe this is my 18th Royal Rumble pay-per-view that I'll be competing in. And I think it's my 14th Royal Rumble match that I'm competing in. So again, making history one more time. I'll be in another 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 more Rumbles. So we got a lot more Rumbles to go. But being in St. Louis, I don't know if that'll ever happen again, Ariel. Having the opportunity to win that thing, win it for the 3rd time, and be the only other WWE superstar besides Austin to do so, you know, that's my goal. But if that doesn't happen, it's still going to be a win for me personally, man, because we're in my hometown in front of my family and friends.
You deserve that. What a career. And I'm happy to hear you say that you got still, 10 more years left.
Yeah, hell yeah.
So impressive about your career are the ups and downs, and that you've kind of landed the plane and have become, one of the greatest of all time. So congratulations. I mean, we could have sat here for 3 hours. We'd even get into the Randy News Network. I had a million questions about that. But we'll save that for another time.
I tend to
no, it's all
do
good.
this. So, but we'll do this again, man. I had fun with you. Definitely
I
look
appreciate it.
forward to doing it again.
Thank you, Randy. Congrats on everything you've accomplished. Good luck this Saturday, Royal Rumble 2022, BT Sport box office, the Viper in front of his hometown crowd. Where else would you rather be? It's going to be great. I appreciate you very much. We all appreciate you. Good luck on Saturday.
Hey, thanks. Take care.